Hi, I'm the Red Lady, and today I'm going to talk about Mabon. And before I go any further, I just need to say that the reason I'm doing this video is because I felt a call to do it, and I just couldn't shake off that call. And so for me personally, this video is a video that needs to be done, and to be perfectly honest, I'm excited and I feel honoured that I was called to do it. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the land on which I live, which is called St Mabon, and there are other places and people connected to this area that also carry the name of Mabon, and I'll talk a bit about that as well. And then I want to talk about Mabon in the Welsh myths and as a deity within the myths, and I'll give you some of the associations that I personally use with Mabon as a deity if you are wanting to work with Mabon as a deity but not sure about his associations. So I thought that might be helpful to share with you. And lastly, I will talk about Mabon in relation to the Autumn Equinox, and so this video has been made as my offering to Mabon. So I live in the South Wales Valleys on an estate called St Mabon, and St Mabon is literally a bog. Very watery, lots of peat. How they built houses here, I will never know, but they have. And according to my father, one hot summer in the 1970s, the peat caught fire and it couldn't be put out at all. And it burned all summer long. And the only thing that eventually put the fire out was the torrential rain that came in September. So these houses were built in the 1960s, and so the naming of this place has nothing to do with the neo-pagan Wheel of the Year or the Festival of Mabon, which is a new thing and was introduced in the 1970s, which I'll talk about a bit later. So just behind where I live, there used to be a body of water that my father describes as a very large pond, which was sadly filled in order to build more houses. Now I don't remember that pond because it was built on top of before my time. So there was also a little spring which I do remember in the field next to where they'd build these houses on top of the pond, and that spring popped up out of the ground on one side of the field and ran across the length of the field and then disappeared back underground again. And I remember this because of playing there amongst the tadpoles and waiting for the heron to appear. There are herons still around here as well, by the way. And that again sadly was built on with an even newer batch of houses again. So what I wanted to find out was whether the name of Mabon is connected to this place because of its strong association with water, possibly. And possibly the body of water that used to be here. That body of water could well have been here for hundreds and hundreds of years or longer, who knows. So anyone who knows the myths connected to Mabon knows that Mabon is most certainly connected to water. And during my hunt for answers, what I found led to more questions. Moving on from that, this village belongs to a parish called Llanfabon. So these days it is separated into different villages with different names, but if you're familiar with Welsh fairy folklore, this is where the story of the Llanfabon Changeling originates. So it's interesting to note that Mabon in Welsh myth, along with water, is also associated with stolen children or stolen babies. So in the tale of how Cwlhwch and Olwen, Mabon is stolen away from his mother when he is 3 days old. And the story of the Llanfabon Changeling is about a baby that is stolen away by the fairies and replaced with a sickly fairy child, a changeling. So that little connection I found intriguing regarding my local land and the folklore connected to it. Also in Llanfabon, you will find a church called St Mabon's. It was originally a medieval site, but this church was rebuilt in 1847 by John Pritchard, who was also responsible for the restoration of Llandaff Cathedral, Lady Chapel. But the church's name of St Mabon is clearly interesting. Now, St Mabon or Mabin was apparently a medieval Cornish saint, apparently, who was one of the children of Brychan, the king of Brycheiniog, in South Wales in the 5th century. And there is also a parish in Cornwall named of her. So her feast day is the 18th of November. But it has been suggested by Sabine Baring-Gould that the true founder of St Mabin's Church was actually a male Welsh saint, Mabon, and the founder of Llanfabon as well. And that the attribution to a female Mabin in Cornwall came about after the true history was lost. It's possible. Well, anyway, so that church is built on an old site and it's called St Mabon's. So another interesting addition to this is that on the site of St Mabon's Church is a memorial, okay, dedicated to 11 unknown miners who lost their lives in a nearby mining disaster. So this memorial was erected in 1907 and was unveiled by the Right Honourable William Abraham, MP, who was also known as Mabon, because his bardic name was Mabon. So he was particularly noted for his powerful speaking voice and was a renowned orator in the English language and also in the Welsh language. And so all of these local associations with Mabon are connected to the land where I live. And by the way, I will put relevant links in the description box below so you can take a look at those if you like. So I spent a good hour in the church grounds, St Mabon's church grounds, checking out both the trees, because I just had to, and some of the graves. And it's again interesting to note that it may have been a common thing for people to use Mabon as a nickname for whatever reason. As you can see here on this grave, I found it intriguing that Ceridwen's name also crops up here because I also work with Ceridwen in my practice. So also our local petrol station, service station, is called Mabon, probably because it's situated on Mabon Road, again Mabon Road, which is a very busy main road through this area. And there is also another street close by called Hiol Mabon, which basically translates as Mabon Road, but it is a separate street altogether from that main street called Mabon Road. So as I had to stop here because if I carried on, I probably would have found a whole lot more connections to Mabon's name here in this locality, you know, but I'm sure you get the picture. So let's talk about this mysterious figure of Mabon, particularly in relation to the tale in the Mabinogion of how Cwlhwch and Olwen. So Mabon isn't the main protagonist of the story, however, he is an important one because without his assistance, Cwlhwch might never have won Olwen. The story is a long one, and so I can't retell it here, even in a shortened version, because it's just too long for this video, and it is so rich with detail that I would likely go off on a tangent and never come back to the point. So if you haven't read it, that story, and you would like to, you can find the story in the Mabinogion. English versions of the Mabinogion are widely available to buy, and so it is relatively easy to pick up a copy of one of these books that contain this story. So as for Mabon's role in the story, it is said that he was stolen away from his mother, Modron, when he was 3 days old, and nobody knows where he is. But Mabon is the only one who can control a certain hound, a hunting dog, to be more precise, that can hunt the magical boar, which is one of the tasks Cwlhwch has to fulfill in order to win Olwen from her father, the giant. So King Arthur's men go looking for Mabon because nobody knows where he is, and during this particular quest they meet a series of ancient animals and ask them if they know of Mabon's whereabouts. They ask a blackbird, she doesn't know. They ask a stag, he doesn't know. They ask an owl, he doesn't know. They ask an eagle, he doesn't know. And then a salmon. Now the salmon appears to suspect of a certain place where Mabon may be. And so the salmon takes 2 of Arthur's men on his back up the river, and this would be the River Severn, as it's called now. And they come to a house of stone, or essentially a prison connected to the water. And here they hear the lamenting and the wailing of Mabon as he is incarcerated in this prison. And so Arthur's men go back to Arthur and tell him the news. And Arthur summons his warriors and essentially go there and attack the fort and literally tear through the walls of the prison and return home with Mabon as a free man. And so now Mabon can assist in the task of hunting the magical boar by taking control of the hound, and so it is clear here that Mabon has a superior otherworldly ability with the control of hunting dogs in general. So after this, Mabon pops up a couple more times in the story in relation to the hunting of the boar, and then Cwlhwch wins Olwen, the end. So in this story, it is strongly suggested that Mabon is a deity, purely because his assistance was needed in order to complete the mission of winning Olwen from the giant via his magical control over the hunting dogs. And the seeking out of Mabon, the search for Mabon, was also a difficult and drawn out quest in itself, because nobody knew where he was. Very much like a spiritual journey undertaken in order to connect with a deity. Exactly like that, in fact. And so Mabon is a deity. Now, myself as a practitioner who has connected with many different spirits and many different deities over the years, as I talk a lot about in many of my other videos, you know, it's clear to me that Mabon isn't simply a spirit you can work with. His energy is extremely powerful. And there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Mabon is a deity. Now, I find that his energy draws in quite subtly at first and then gradually becomes stronger the more you make the effort to connect with him. So as in the story, the quest to find Mabon isn't easy. Now, Mabon, you know, doesn't come easily to people. He will make you work for the privilege of his assistance. Okay, so seeking out Mabon as a deity is an initiation in and of itself. And so Mabon has deeper mysteries to explore, and he won't work with anyone who hasn't put the effort to truly seek him out, who hasn't put in the effort to seek him out. And, you know, I quote, you know, Arthur's men ask him, "Do you have any hope of being released for gold or silver or worldly wealth or through battle or fighting?" Mabon replies, what you get of me will be got by fighting. And so Mabon doesn't come easily. He makes you work hard for his attention. So that's just a little tip there. Mabon isn't a pushover. If you are wanting to work seriously with Mabon as a deity, then I'm sorry to have to tell you, but you are not going to be able to do that by carving and lighting pumpkins or spreading autumn leaves on your altar, respectfully, because that's not what Mabon is about at all. So if you want to work with Mabon, I will share with you the associations that he has given to me in order to work with him more closely. So associations that are better suited to drawing him to you, if you like. If you have Welsh or Celtic ancestry, then that may be why you're drawn to him, but you don't have to have those kinds of ancestral connections in order to work with him. You know, anyone can work with him if they put in the effort. So the associations are bodies of water and the River Severn. So if you wanted to build an altar to Mabon, you know, you could put water on it, particularly water collected from the River Severn, but that's not always possible for people. So any river water would work because it's the association with rivers and river water. So salmon is another association. In Welsh tradition, the salmon is a great fish of wisdom, and it was the salmon that essentially found Mabon. So offerings of salmon or pictures of salmon, you know, I personally also associate Mabon with oak trees, even though that's not in the story, but this is just because Maes Mabon, the bogland on which I live, is surrounded by oak trees, like a natural oak grove, I suppose. So on my own daily walk with my dog, you know, I will always whisper to the oak trees of my personal magical business and acknowledge them as I pass by. So oak wood and oak trees and acorns, that works for me as well with Mabon. So this leads me on to dogs. So dogs is another extremely important association for Mabon. By the way, here, I'm not one to mince my words at all. And if there is something that needs to be said, then I will say it. Hunting. Now, particularly hunting with dogs. Now, this is illegal activity here in Wales, I would like to point out, first of all. But I also have to say that it is still a pastime that is very much alive and kicking here in this part of the valleys. Whether it's illegal or not, it is still a very common activity, and that is a fact. And in that sense, the energy of Mabon here is strong with that particular association that is now outlawed. So as I said earlier, Mabon is not lighting pumpkins and collecting autumn leaves. Mabon is associated with the hunt. So just as, say, the Greek goddess Artemis is associated with the hunt, okay? And the mysteries connected with the hunt. And so you can put images of dogs on your altar, or if you have a dog, that's great news because Mabon loves dogs. So if you're wanting to work deeper now with Mabon, there is also shadow work. Now, Mabon is shit hot on shadow work. He works as an emotional healing deity, as he is connected to water, and in the story when he is found, he is lamenting and wailing. Obviously a very emotional thing to do that helps you to release emotional trauma. You know, he does this, by the way, he will make you cry a lot, you know, if you need him to help you with shadow work, because crying out your watery tears is an act of emotional release. Also, on a deeper level, you know, we have the parent-child relationship between Mabon and his mother Modron. So he assists with any difficulties in that respect as well. And so he does assist deeply with parents who have lost children or are grieving over children who have passed away at a young age, and assists you when you are separated from a parent. So the assistance of reuniting lost children with parents, issues with adoption and fostering where parent and child have been separated, you know, for whatever reason that might be. So difficult upbringings where you may have been separated from a parent and vice versa. So moving on to Mabon's more recent connections to the autumn equinox since the 1970s. As a Welsh spirit worker and magical practitioner, you know, you might well expect me to be annoyed about this, or the fact that his name is mispronounced as Mabon a lot, especially by Americans, but I'm not. You know, in fact, don't bother me at all. Mabon's energy as a deity is increasing in strength throughout the Western world at large as we speak. So his energy is becoming stronger, and this, in all fairness, is much due to the autumn equinox being renamed Mabon on the neo-pagan Wheel of the Year calendar by Aidan Kelly, I think, for some completely obscure reason. And I say obscure because Mabon has nothing to do with the seasons or autumn, for that matter, but that happy coincidence, or rather happy accident, as the wonderful Bob Ross would say, love Bob Ross, you know, has definitely done Mabon a big favour in helping to establish a resurgence of interest in him. So Mabon isn't really a pagan festival at all, but an actual deity that you can seriously work with. And if you've managed to get this far into this video, hats off to you. Thank you for bearing with me. If you've got this far into this video, then Mabon is a deity that is certainly possibly inviting you to work with him. So whether you choose to do that or initiate that on the autumn equinox or not, it doesn't really matter what time of the year that may be. You know, in my opinion, the autumn equinox is as good a time as any. You know, whether you attempt to go down that path with Mabon is entirely your business. But as I said in the beginning, I felt called to do this video. So this video is my offering to Mabon, and if you got anything of value from it, then please do like, share and subscribe, and check out my other videos. You know, I work with a large range of spirits and deities in my personal practice, and I'm only too happy to pass on what I've learned from them. And you know, so don't forget to check out the links in the description box below. I am the Red Lady. Do take care, and I will see you soon.